Let's talk about delivery. This is a super important part of comedy, and if you were thinking during the joke writing part of the course that like this is really puzzle solving in a way that like is frustrating for me and I'd rather just perform and enjoy that and be funny that way, you totally can. And actually, delivery is more important than the joke writing because you can have a perfect joke, but if you deliver it badly, then it's a lot less likely to get a laugh. On the other hand, if you have a totally flawed joke that doesn't make sense, but you deliver it in a confident way with like gusto and you're being a character that people like and think is silly and fun, they'll laugh and it'll go great. Delivery, more important than the actual joke writing. We definitely want to get both as good as possible. We're trying to, make the most of this performance, right? But just know that it's not all in the joke writing and it's really fun. Also, it's a little bit easier to learn the delivery stuff than it is to learn all the mechanics of the joke writing. So it works out in your favor too. The first thing that I want to talk about in this delivery section is that this is a social interaction. You are talking with people. It's not so different from a regular conversation that you would have with a friend of yours, or if you're meeting some new nice folks at a party or something like that. The same rules that apply, the same social etiquette, it applies to when you're on stage as when you're at a party meeting a group of new people. So the things that would feel awkward to talk about at a party, they might be awkward to talk about on stage, unless, of course, you have a way of getting into those topics that's comfortable. Luckily, when you're doing a stand-up set, you can plan those ways of keeping it comfortable on your way into those topics. You can plan far ahead of time. That's quite a nice benefit. But know that it's a social interaction. The audience is there to listen to you, and I know that it's like kind of different in that they're part of the interaction. The social interaction is mostly not to say anything other than laugh and listen. But when you're telling a good story at a party or something like that, they're just listening and laughing in those situations too. And just like with a social interaction, the audience likes to be heard. They like to be paid attention to. And so any way that you can show that you are paying attention to them, super useful. So when you're telling a joke and somebody gives a facial expression that's like piquing their interest, you might look over to them and be like, I know, right? And then get back into what you're talking about. If the audience groans, then showing awareness of that groan, that keeps it feeling conversational too. It keeps it feeling like a social interaction, and it keeps it valuable in that way to the audience. So any ways that you can sneak in a little bit of listening to the audience and showing your awareness of them, acknowledging them, that's really, really useful. It doesn't have to be a specific segment of your set where like right now I'm going to be doing some crowd work and then I'm going to be doing material where the audience might as well not be there because I'm just rehearsing this script or, I'm just reciting it. This should all be a little more liquid than that. So there's a give and take here. Work in those little moments. When you're doing material, work in those little moments of acknowledging the audience as much as you can. It's super valuable. There are some, other differences between a stand-up social interaction and a normal conversation. There's a deadline on the interaction. When your set is done, that's it for the social interaction. You're elevated and amplified, and they're sitting at their table in the dark watching you. It's a little different in those ways, and that can be the kind of thing that makes a comedian feel uncomfortable. But just try to remember the ways that it's similar to the things that are comfortable for you, those social aspects, and focus on those, and you'll be much more comfortable. One thing to consider, and if we have talked about this previously, then, that's fine. You'll hear it again. It's important. The audience is there to feel good, not just laugh. And because the audience is there to feel good, you should accommodate that. And making them laugh helps them feel good, but it's not the only way to help them feel good. And the main way to help the audience feel good is through delivery. So when you're giving your delivery, if you are conveying something that makes them happy emotionally, through your projected emotion, then that is so helpful. And it helps those future jokes get bigger laughs, because it's way easier to make an audience laugh if they're happy and feeling good than if they're not happy and not feeling good. Let's get a little bit into the nuts and bolts of delivery, the things that you're going to be physically doing when you go on stage and you are talking to the audience and performing your act. Okay, so first of all, the host is most likely going to announce you to the stage, and when they do, you will walk on stage and shake the host's hand. And by the way, these are not hard and fast rules. Nobody's going to be like, you have disobeyed the comedy gods if you break one of these rules, or any of these rules, really. But it's good to know what the standard tradition is, so that when you do break those traditions, you can do it artfully in ways that are fun and interesting rather than on accident. Okay, so the host will introduce you. You'll shake the host's hand. You'll talk into the mic to the audience. If you decide to take the mic out of the stand, then put the stand behind you. That's useful because if you take the mic out of the stand and you're walking around and the mic stand is in front of you, that's a distraction. That is something that the audience will time and again just remember. It will, every time you walk past it or it's right in front of you, they'll be like, oh, I wish that stand wasn't there. That's just slightly annoying, right? So put the stand behind you. When you are talking into the mic, you also want to keep a relatively stable decibel level. And that's not to say that you can't get loud, but it is to say that what comes through the projectors, through the audio, the amplifiers, the sound projectors, that should be stable. Because if you are shouting into the mic and it's coming through those amplifiers, why am I blanking on that? My brain is melting as we speak. Do you smell toast? If you are shouting into those speakers and it's coming through those speakers real loud, it can get really piercing for the audience. And instead of them going, oh, this comedian's got a lot of energy and they feel really strongly about something, they'll just be like, ouch, my ears hurt. And that's probably not the effect that you want to have on the audience. And so if you decide to get louder, then move away from the microphone, like I'm getting really into it right now and I'm shouting, but you can still hear me at about the same decibel level because I've moved away from the microphone. And if I decide that I want to just like whisper, then I move really close to the microphone and you can still hear me at a relatively stable decibel level. Okay, let's stop the ASMR and get back into it. So keep that decibel level relatively stable. And I know that this is going to be, when you're on stage, it's hard to think about all of these things at once. That's okay. Pick like as many goals as you can keep in your brain comfortably at a time. If you have too many, it's going to make it really hard to accomplish any of them because you're just going to be basically the challenge is just juggling all of these goals, and that's stressful and it makes each of them harder than they need to be. So focus on like one or two when you go on stage. Maybe one night it's, keep the decibel level solid and also try to pay attention to the audience and acknowledge them. And then the next night, maybe it's more about doing act outs or emoting with your face or something like that. So, limit your goals to something that is nice and chewable for you. While you're performing, keep an eye out for the light. The light is the thing that the host or the booker or some other member of the staff or producing group of the show will show you that signifies you have a certain amount of time left. Often at open mics, that's like 1 minute. But at other shows, it might be, in some open mics, it might be 2 minutes or more. And sometimes they'll ask you what you would like your light to signify. I've seen comedians say 5 minutes, even 10 minutes. If they have like a certain amount of material that they know they want to do last and it takes 10 minutes, they get that light, they go into that material, and then that's how they finish their set. So know how much time that light signifies, and then do that amount of time. And by the way, that amount of time, let's talk about the timing stuff for this. At different places, they're going to be more or less strict about how far under or over your time you're welcome to do. And if it's like a proper club, they probably want you within 30 seconds. They start to get a little annoyed, or progressively more annoyed the more under or over that time you do. So you're really trying to hit that time pretty close. This is something to practice ahead of time. Time yourself when you're rehearsing and figure out how much time you have spent and what you need to cut or add. If you are at other shows, then maybe ask if you can do a little more time, and be ready to not do a little more time if they say no. It's their show, and you got to be cool and professional and play by the rules. So try to stay within 30 seconds on either side generally. When your set is over, if you've taken the mic out of the stand, then put the stand back where it was, put the mic back in the stand. So you're kind of leaving the stage the way that you found it. If you've moved the stool into a weird place, then it's pretty useful to move the stool back to where you found it as well. Thank the audience, shake the host's hand on your way out, and then celebrate. Awesome. An accomplishment well done. You did a stand-up set. After your stand-up set, if it went well, it's going to be really easy to be in a great mood. But even if it didn't go well, it's really useful to stay professional. Don't be a sour sack. Don't be a sad Sam. Just be professional, and stay in a good mood. And what you'll often find is that if you are professional and you're in a good mood, even after a set that didn't go that well, people respond better to you as a result of that. If you go like, oh, it went really badly and I'm really sad, then they start to go like, well, yeah, I guess it was really bad, and they, you're kind of leading them to think it was worse than they might have otherwise thought. And it's nice to get booked on shows again, and it's easier to get booked on shows again if they are happier being around you. So be cool, be fun, even if your set doesn't go that great. Let's talk about some more specific things that you can do with your delivery. One of them is act outs. Act outs are so useful because act outs help the audience imagine themselves in that scene that you're setting. And that makes it more immersive. They transport themselves out of their seats and into that situation. And then you've got them. You've got their attention. That's great. Act outs. They don't have to imagine the things as much if you are gesturing where they are, how big they are, what you're doing with them, etc. If you are talking to somebody, you may, like a character in your act, like you've made up a character or you're recounting a story or something, you may want to imagine that character in their entirety. Get as specific as like how tall they are and the ways that they're standing. And so when you talk through that character's perspective, maybe like turn in a certain way so that you are looking at where you would be in that scene, and like hunch if they're hunching, stand a little different, make a different, facial expression, do different gestures the way that they would. If you combine this with some of the other tips that I'm going to give about changing your vocal patterns, your facial expressions, etc., for these different characters, they feel different to the point where you might not even need to say after a certain point that this person is talking. You're in a conversation with them and you just change your voice and the way you stand and the way you look, and the audience knows instantly that this is that other character talking. And then you can just have that conversation between you and this character version of you, and the audience is just with you the whole time. And you never have to say, I said, then they said, then I said, then they said. Walking or pacing around can be really useful too, because the walking uses more of the stage. And when you use more of the stage in various ways, like let's say your gestures are big, that shows more confidence. That shows the audience that you're not so nervous that you're trying to take up as little space as possible, you know? And so you walk to a different part of the stage, it feels a little bit more like your territory, and you seem a little more like a leader. You are taking that space. That can be really useful. Now, this isn't the only way to show confidence and to show that you are, a leader in this situation. I've seen lots of people stand at the mic and they never take the mic out of the stand, and they still seem like they're totally in charge. There are a number of things that can come together to show people different types of humans, whether it's confident or comfortable or flirty or tough or whatever, right? It's not one thing. And so you don't have to do them all. These are kind of options for you. And each one that you decide to do or not do kind of changes the flavor a little bit. But it should be thoughtful, not an accident. One thing that you can do is sit on the stool. There will often at comedy shows be a stool there. And when you sit on the stool, you might notice that you calm down and the audience calms down. It becomes a little bit different of an environment in terms of the vibe. It's a little more like a storytelling time potentially, or you're going to teach this audience something. And so they kind of get this, this person's like the cool professor kind of vibe. That can happen sometimes when you're sitting on the stool. Sitting on the stool, just like any other thing, should be a thoughtful aspect of your performance. Does it make sense to sit on the stool? You can also use this as part of your act outs. Like maybe you're driving a car or you're sitting on a bench next to somebody and you're talking to them. The stool's right there. You can use that as a prop. Actually, this leads to the next thing. Props are everywhere. The mic stand, the microphone, your phone in your pocket, the drink that you have in your hand. There are props all over the place. Use those. If it makes sense in an act out to use one of the props that are on stage, maybe you pick up the mic stand and you use it as a pointer, like you were giving that presentation at the office that you're talking about in your bit, right? Props are everywhere, and it helps the audience immerse themselves even further. And they like that it's, kind of clever that you've used this thing as something else. One thing to consider with delivery, actually, this is one thing to consider overall. When you are at clubs, different clubs will have different rules for the comedians, spoken or unspoken. Some clubs don't like it when comedians wear a graphic t-shirt. Some clubs are totally fine with that. Some clubs don't like it when the comedian sits on a stool because they think that it's, a power move that is for the comedians who are professional or something like that. I don't know. They have their reasons, right? But clubs will have different rules for themselves. And so abide by those because you want to keep getting booked at those clubs. But just know that outside of those rules that the clubs have, those are artistic decisions that you make. If you like to sit on the stool, then do that. Eye contact, super useful. This is one of those things that conveys confidence to the audience. You are willing to look them in the eye when you're talking to them. It feels like more of a connection between you and the audience, like you are paying attention to them and the way that they feel about what you're saying. This is to an extent, though. I mean, don't pick one person in the audience and then just make eye contact with them the whole time because it gets a little creepy. But spread it around, you're looking at different people. There are different people to pay attention to. Don't just put all the attention on one single person in the audience. But eye contact can be really useful. If you are feeling uncomfortable about eye contact, you can fake it, look at various places towards the back of the room, like in the back row, but not specifically at anyone. And then everybody in rows that are closer to you will think that you are making eye contact with somebody behind them. So they'll think that you are, that confidence that eye contact conveys will be conveyed to everybody who's in rows before that back row that you're looking at generally. Facial expressions. This is one of the big ways that you can convey emotions that you want the audience to feel. So if you convey happiness, if you have an underlining, even if you do different facial expressions, like if I like look like angry or something like that, you can kind of tell like I'm not really angry. The underlining mood is still good. And so this is a big way that you can help the audience feel good. You can give them those, you can trigger those mirror neurons for them where they're like, oh, this person's in a good mood. I'm a little bit more in a good mood. And then, that momentum gets going and now we're all feeling good, right? And this is true kind of no matter what sort of delivery you decide on for you. Like if you want to be the enthusiastic person, you can. But if you want to be the deadpan person or the dour person, you can do that too. It's just that the audience needs to know that the underlining mood is good. If they actually think that you are actually in a bad mood, or you're actually bored, or you're really actually angry, then that can cut in the wrong direction. They can be like, ooh, this is uncomfortable. This comedian is giving me bad feels, right? And there's always caveats to everything. Social interactions are complex, If you are angry about something that the audience is okay with getting angry about and they can get on board with, then sure, that can be something that works in your favor too, all right? So there's exceptions to all this stuff. But generally, for stand-up comedy, underlining good mood, quite important, quite useful. With facial expressions, if you're wearing the same facial expression the whole time, then that can stop triggering to the audience that this is your feeling, and it can start feeling like you're wearing a mask, right? You're wearing like a smile mask, like you're not feeling happy, right? Because if you're doing a 5-minute set, nobody smiles without changing their expression, no matter what they're talking about, the entire time that they're talking for a whole 5 minutes. Like that, after a certain amount of time, starts to feel less authentic, right? And so varying your facial expressions, it's useful. It also makes a lot of sense because you're going to be talking about different topics. Some of those topics are going to be about somebody who was sleepy or somebody who was crazy or sad or excited or tons of different emotions. And so those are opportunities for you to change your facial expression to match those things so that you can convey those emotions of those bits to the audience, give the audience a much more emotionally rich and layered experience, not just through the things that you're saying, but the variety of emotional cues that you're giving them through your facial expressions. There's some art to this too, because it's not always going to be a 1-for-1 match. If you're talking about something sad, it might be funny to do it with a flirtatious like tone or some blithe tone that doesn't fit a very serious thing that's happening, right? I mean, these are adding a social or emotional reframing layer of humor. The emotion doesn't match the content of what you're talking about. That can be really funny too. So be thoughtful about these things. What makes sense for the delivery in terms of your emotion and facial expression, but also what's the funniest thing? And then finally with this, instruments or other sorts of novelty that you might have on stage. This is a logistical concern. You want to have these things with you in such a way where you can start using them quickly so that you don't have to diminish the momentum of your set. Let's say you have a guitar and you want to play it, but the strap of the guitar isn't attached, and so it takes a while for you to put that on, and then you have to tune it, and then you kind of have to like warm up your hands or something like that, right? So that takes a while, and that diminishes the momentum that you've built up, hopefully from the jokes that you've told so far. And so have these things ready to use immediately. Have that guitar already tuned, have the strap so that you can just like put it over your shoulder real quick, and maybe write some jokes that you can say, some funny things ahead of time for that moment so that you can bridge the gap from the other humor that you're doing to whatever novelty you are going to incorporate into your act. You're trying to keep this entertaining throughout. No breaks. No breaks for the audience. All entertainment. Make them have a great time all the time. Another thing that you should pay close attention to are your micro expressions. These are the expressions that will appear on your face really briefly before that expression, that facial expression real estate, is taken up by a different major expression that you want to convey. And perceptive audience members will notice these micro expressions and they will perceive them as revealing of your real mood. Okay? So in between your smile and your next facial expression, what is it? Go over your tape and look at what your face is doing. If it looks nervous or bored or whatever negative emotion it is, that's something to work on. That's something to pay attention to the next time you do a set. What does my face look like? What are my eyes doing? Am I smiling with my eyes too? What am I revealing in these micro expressions? So pay attention to those. This is one of those like plates to spin probably later because it's hard. It's not the easiest thing to do, managing your micro expressions. So, get this other stuff down first and then start thinking about that one. Here are some more aspects of delivery, okay? One of them is variety. We talked about it a little bit with the facial expressions, not wearing the same one the whole time. That goes for everything. Audiences really like variety. So that may be variety in your decibel level, your tone, your facial expression, whether you are sitting or standing, whether you're doing big act outs or little act outs, whether you're doing short jokes or long jokes. There's just variety is huge for audiences. They love it so much. So in terms of decibel level, if you are talking at like this regular tone like I'm talking right now, and then all of a sudden I get really excited about something, that adds some novelty, right? And then maybe with my speed, I'm going at this certain speed and maybe I'm talking about something that's like really exciting and I'm getting so into it, and then the epic thing that is about to happen in my story is about to happen, and so I stop and I slow down and I kind of dig into that moment. You notice how like that's more exciting than if I were just talking at the same pace, the same decibel level, the same tone, the same feeling the whole time. That gets boring. That gets same, right? So switch it up. So another thing that you can do, and this is like kind of a nice to have, is maybe do some shout outs. So the host has just introduced you. Maybe like give it up for the host. Maybe thank the host for the nice introduction or congratulate them on like being really funny and, starting that show right. Maybe give it up for the other comics that have gone on in the show and performed their acts, or, an applause break for the wait staff. All of these things, these moments of gratitude that you're showing, they're nice things to do anyway, and they're useful, and for the people who you do them for, that's awesome. It makes them feel good. It also helps you because it makes it so that you are showing the audience that you have that gratitude, that you are a nice person, which is true. I'm hoping that when you say these things, you mean them. So it's a good thing to do. Another thing that's useful to do is thank the host. Show gratitude in a lot of different ways, actually. So when the host introduces you, you shake their hand, maybe like have the audience give it up for the host, congratulate them on their good set. Thank the other performers for doing a good job so far and get the audience to applaud for them, or the wait staff. Showing gratitude in these ways, number one, it shows respect for all of these people, which you should have. They're people and they deserve that respect, and it's really nice of you to do that for them. And number two, it lets the audience know that you have that gratitude and that you are that respectful, and that makes them like you more. And if they like you more, it makes it a little easier for your set to go great.